For our third question, let's get into something that I think everyone wants to know, which is the money stuff. And so, could you tell us a little bit about how you charge people for your clinical work? What's your philosophy overall on money in clinical practice? And about how you balance your desire to serve your community with your desire to make a living as an herbalist? We know that that's tricky, and we're so excited to hear a bit about what you've discovered over time.
This question is an interesting one because I feel like it's midstream for me. Like I can say right now how I'm thinking about money and structure and accessibility and those types of things. And probably a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it will be different. So this has evolved absolutely since I started clinical work, and I'm sure it will continue to evolve because it's something that I think about a lot. So the way that I'm doing things right now is that I have a clinic. I have a very small clinic, as I've already mentioned, where I see people individually. And right now, the price for an initial visit plus one follow-up with me privately is $349. And I'm sure that sounds like quite a lot to a lot of people who are listening here, and it's certainly gone up over the years. When I first started practicing, I was really confidence was an issue. I was not sure I knew what I was doing. And also I was thinking, like, well, how can I make this absolutely the most accessible to people that I can? So I was really charging relatively low prices. And I was using the head in the sand method of just like, oh, I'll just charge this and hopefully it will work out. And over time, I realized, okay, I need to actually sit down with the numbers and think about like, how much is it costing me to run this practice? Like having a website and paying for the tools that I am using and paying for my licensure and my certifications and those types of things. Like there are costs associated with running a business. And of course, I need to pay for food and rent and these types of things. And I sat down with it after a year or two, and I was like, oh, I'm actually paying money to be doing this work, which doesn't work out. And, I think there's a time and a place where people feel that they are able to do that, but I was not in one of those places. I really needed to be supporting myself, and I, in fact, was losing money. So I had to get really real about what does this look like? How can I make sure that I'm able to support myself doing this kind of work? And so I've done a lot of thinking about like, what does it actually cost? What does it need to cost? In order for me to be able to do this. I have certain circumstances. For example, I have childcare that I need to think about. Anyway, there's lots of factors that may vary for me versus somebody else. So I'm not saying this is the right number for everybody, but for me, this is where I need to be in order to be able to do this work and to feel good about it. So that's how much it costs. I also have a free clinic. It's on hold right now because of some personal circumstances, but hopefully I'm getting it back up and running soon. And the way the free clinic works is it's no questions asked. It's just free. I usually do that once a month. And people work with me in a team of other practitioners, and up to 3 visits free of charge. And we do whatever kind of work people need. The herbs are not included, although we do work with people sometimes on very, very tight budgets and, things like grocery store herbalism and, what can we do with some ginger and some cinnamon and whatever else. So we can absolutely make that work. So for me, that is the cleanest method. So like either you pay to come see me privately or you can come to the free clinic. There's not a sliding scale. There's not, this, that, and the other. I do have the option to pay in installments. So if people want to break it up and pay over time, they can if they come to see me in my private practice. But that's it. I have worked with sliding scale. I've worked with bartering. I've worked with all sorts of different models. And I have found that for me, this is what works the best right now. So that's where I am. And, I've had to do a lot of thinking about what does it mean to make things accessible? What are other people already doing that I can support in order to increase accessibility at the global level, that it doesn't have to be like me individually making herbalism accessible to everybody, but what can I do at the collective level in order to ensure access or to move toward access while also meeting my own needs of, eating and having a roof over my head and these types of things. So that's kind of where I am on that right now. And let me see, there was something else I wanted to say on this topic. It's just a very complex one. And I think we feel sometimes a lot of guilt. There's this whole relationship between being a healer and being somebody who gives and who cares, and then also somebody who is asking for support in the form of getting paid for our work. And it feels I think there's a lot of inner work to be done on that. And actually, I have it right here. This isn't on purpose, but this book right here, Radical Healership by Laura May Northrop, is a really great book if you're struggling with this. I highly recommend it to just like wrap your head around some of the inner issues that go along with money and access and being a healer and doing our work in a capitalistic world, which is not where most of us want to be, but it is where we are. So that's kind of how I think of it. And I'm sure things will change over time. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say is that I learned the hard way that I'm also not somebody who has the constitution to do a full-time clinical practice. There's just a certain type of people who can do that, and it's not me. So I like to be somebody who's doing some clinic and then some teaching. I find that that's a great balance for me. I know folks who like to do sort of herb walks and clinic, and that's a good balance. Or some people who like to be in the garden, growing herbs, making remedies, making formulas for people, running an apothecary, and doing clinic. So there's not necessarily, one way to do things. But for me, what feels really good is to have sort of multiple legs on the chair I'm sitting on, where I'm depending on my energy and my interests and the interests of my community, I can find a balance between multiple different types of things in order to support myself and have a relatively stable income. But that's where I am, and I hope that's helpful for people.